This episode is sponsored by Free Market Kids. Join the league of families who are transforming family time into unforgettable Bitcoin learning experiences. With our Hodl Up Bitcoin mining board game, you're not just playing, you're building bridges, creating memories, and unlocking the brilliance of the future one block at a time.
I bought Bitcoin. I didn't know what I bought, but I was so happy. Finally, I'm gonna be rich. But 2 days later, the bubble bursted. I'm like, what? What just happened? I knew it. It's a scam. And I cursed myself for a few days. But then I thought I really have to figure this thing out. Otherwise, I'll be scammed again in the same city. So that's when I finally took the time to research about Bitcoin.
Hey everybody, welcome to Orange Hatter. I've got a very exciting announcement to make today. The website for the Orange Hatter Retreat is up and registration is now open. We are offering a 21% discount for anyone who registers by January 30th, 2024. We did have to move the retreat up by 1 day, so it will run from March 16th through the 20th in Merida, Yucatan, Mexico. This is in partnership with Project Yucatan. It's going to be an amazing 5 days of recharge, restoration, and deep connections with women Bitcoiners. It will be an absolutely incredible chance to meet like-minded women and form friendships that will last a lifetime. Please go to the website www.orangehatter.com/Yucatan. And I will see you in Mexico. And now on to our very wonderful guest. Enjoy. Welcome to Orange Hatter. I'm so excited to have you here. I can't wait to dive in.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's good to be on the show hosted by our fellow women.
Yes, definitely. Woman to woman conversation. All right. So I know the audience can't see this, but we are very casual here. I am literally sitting with a coat on and my blanket on my legs because I'm in the basement talking to Teruko over a cup of coffee. We want this story to be very relatable to you. So yeah, let's get right to it. Teruko, so
Okay.
tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. So my name is Teruko. Now I'm working with a Bitcoin company for over 4 or 5 years already. But before that, well, people see me as a free spirit. I like to be free, or like I like to have like options. I value flexibility. And then I'm not afraid of changes. Like I'm a risk taker. So my life has took like big turns several times. Growing up, I was born and raised in Japan, but like typical Japanese, not like me. So I'm usually I'm the like loud one. I'm like really spontaneous. I ask questions at school, so teachers are like, it's so rude to question me like at class. And then but I can't help it, right? Because I'm so curious. So yeah, that was like me growing up, but my family were very supportive of me being kind of weird, funny, or like uh, free and independent personality. So I was quite lucky. And so naturally, I was interested in the world like outside of Japan. So as soon as I hit college, I started traveling around the world. So far, I've probably visited more than 70 countries, but I stopped counting after 50 countries, so I don't know exactly. But I did, yeah, like backpacking Europe. I did really like sort of like five-star hotel type of traveling too. But so my college days were like those traveling days. But then you graduate college and you have to start working, right? So my first job was because I loved traveling so much. So I wanted to be in the industry, which I can also travel. So naturally, I chose a travel agency so I can be a tour guide. But that was big mistake. If you love something, you should keep it as a hobby, not make it a work. because work, because you do something you don't want, you suffer. That's why you get compensated. So the first lesson I learned as pressure in work. But yeah, so I couldn't last long, and then I quit. And then I was so afraid of telling my parents I quit my job after like 2 weeks. So I'm like, I have to find a new job before I come clean to my parents. Yeah, I was like, anything, just job. I need a job. So then I was like going through jobs posting site and blah blah blah, and they found that this new job, which was like a law firm. I was just a legal assistant, and then there I was hired as a legal assistant, but I found out there were it was back in like late 90s, so everyone had a PC, everyone had emails, but that office or maybe law industry overall wasn't digitalized at all. And then I had to like go to the warehouse and then pick up the files from the pile of files, right? So I'm like, why do I have to do this? If they have a database, I know exactly where the information they are looking for. So I'm like, going to the partner and then complained about my job being inefficient because of this manual work, right? And then he was like, what can I do? I mean, what do you want to do? So I'm like, I wanna build database, even though I had no experience, right? But already Microsoft had a was it Access, which is the software you can actually build customized database even though you don't have a coding skills. So yeah, even though I was hired as a legal assistant, I kind of pivoted myself to this database project. Like it's my personal project. So it was funny. So I still had to work as a legal assistant during the day, but after the work, I could work on my own project. And then they at first they were not gonna pay me for my own project because that's something I just wanted to do. But so it took me almost like 6 months to like 8 months to complete. Like I literally uploaded all the files, information, at least the index part, to the database, and then I automated the reporting system. So we don't have to manually write the monthly or like weekly update to our clients. So even though I spent 6 to 8 months on that, the time saving I got afterward that we had this database was huge. And the partners saw the benefit. So eventually they actually paid me to buy that database from me. So that was it was exciting. It was something I did by myself, and then I actually made money. And then whole process I actually enjoyed a lot. Everything was new to me. And then I had to go to a bookstore, look for something I can use. And then also I was going to this forum asking questions. I want to make this. I need this function. How can I get it? And the people were so nice that you just do this. And yeah, so I would say that was my first encounter with technology, software. So I got really interested into that area of the business. So I decided to quit the law firm and then went back to school. So I went back for master degree in the US. Because at that point, I thought, okay, maybe I could do simple coding and programming, but I'm not good at it. So I wanted to be more like IT consultants. So I went back to business school to get my MBA. And then, yeah, business school was fun. It was busy and it was all that stuff. But after I finished the school, I I didn't stay in the US. I came back to Japan and then worked for Sony, which is kind of IT consumer product company. And then that product I was assigned was, yeah, it was IT. It was like an iPhone without cell phone. So it's like everything you can do. Like you can take picture, you can listen to the music. It's just you can't talk. It's not a phone kind of stuff. Yeah, it was also fun. I was in like product planning, like marketing, but because it's Sony, it's a big company, everything was so slow. And then whatever you want to do, you have to fill the forms. Paperwork was killing me. And then the person who value flexibility and freedom couldn't take it. It was so much structures you have to follow. And I'm like, just kill me. So I left after 2 years. And then after that, I was pretty much on my own. I started my online business. At one point, I was doing personal shopper. And after that, I was full-time Airbnb host because I love traveling, right? And then I stayed Airbnbs all over the world. And then I'm like, why don't I just start Airbnb? So even when I'm in Japan, I feel like I'm traveling. So I did that for 5 years, I think. Yeah. So I was like really, yeah, I'm like the person who get like I'm curious, so I always can find something to distract me like for a year or two, and then I really dig in deep into it. But then I'm like, okay, I'm done. Something new. I need something new. So yeah, I was changing the jobs every 3, 4 years, and then I was enjoying that kind of life. That was pretty much my pre-Bitcoin days.
I find it very fascinating that you are so not the typical Japanese woman that people think of. So I want to dig a little deeper into your childhood because Japan is kind of interesting because you have simultaneously the very rich and very deep traditions of honor and respect and structure, and then you're also at the cutting edge of innovation. When you were growing up and being curious and asking questions when you're not supposed to, I'm really glad to hear that your parents supported you. But what was it like for you as a student in the Japanese school system with your personality?
With my personality, because I'm like super social. If I go somewhere, I usually dominate this, place. Like I'm like, yeah, I can do this, I can do that. So luckily, I was also well accepted by friends, class two. I was never picked on. I guess I was too strong to be picked on. Yeah, I was always class president or something like that. People usually don't like to be in that role, and I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. Kind of, yeah. So in a way, because I ask questions I'm not supposed to, so teachers are kind of annoyed, but at the same time, because I volunteer to be a class president, so they also valued to be kind of, spontaneous and then take actually responsibility.
How was that like when you were going through the testing phase of entering higher education?
Oh, like specifically study for college entrance examination and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was tough because you have no flexibility. There is only one answer, right? It's usually a multiple choices. So, but I have a good memory, so I could memorize a lot of stuff. So I did okay. Yeah. The tough part is you actually have to, so you can train yourself to do good in that kind of testing, right? So junior high and high school, both I had to go to this cram school, especially tailored for scoring high on that kind of test. So that wasn't fun. And then that consumed my precious free time. So I didn't get at all. Yeah, but I knew already that that's something I have to go through to be in a place I want to be. So yeah.
Okay, so you get through the testing phase, and now you're at the university, and you said that you actually traveled a lot during your university years. So were they
Yeah,
travel
so
abroad programs, or were they just vacation kind of trips?
it's vacation type of trip, but Japanese educational system is different from the US, I think. So up until high school, their whole purpose for students are getting into good university. And once you get into university, like unlike in the US, you actually have to work really hard in the university, right, to get good grade or just to graduate. But Japan is not like that. Once you are in, you will be graduating even though you don't have to do any work. So in my case, yes, I was student at the university, but I didn't really go to classes. I didn't attend classes. And then professors are also lazy too. So they reused the same test over and over for many years. So I could just get the test in advance from a friend who's already been through that same class. So yeah, literally you can graduate without studying in Japan. So instead of going to classes, I actually started working. It's a part-time job, but I was almost working as a full-timer. Like I was working 8 hours a day to save money for traveling. Yeah, so I work and then save up the fund. Then once I have enough, I just took off, even though school are in, it wasn't even summer break or spring break. I just, whenever I had money, then I just took off.
Okay, so the 4 years that you were in college, you were actually not doing college work at all. It was
No.
in name only.
Mhm.
And you literally took
Yeah,
off
so
in the middle
I
of the
was
school year.
yeah. So I was supposed to study economics, and then I have a bachelor degree in economics. But yeah, I didn't learn much about economics. But luckily, it was Keynesian, so thank God I didn't learn Keynesian.
That's too funny. Okay. And I guess that's just the general understanding of all Japanese. It's just that you basically complete your education by high school graduation, and then the 4 years of
Mhm.
college is the reward that you get.
Yeah. It's like a moratorium you get before facing the tough reality, like
Yeah.
4 years of vacations. But I think nowadays it's a bit different because my niece actually go to school every day and then start even have a homework, doing the homework at home. So maybe they changed.
Well, here's my question then. Do you think that the education that you experienced through world traveling was far more valuable than maybe a classroom experience where you get the professors lecturing you and you have to write papers?
I don't know because I didn't go that way, right? I couldn't really compare which I didn't experience. But I would say, I don't know, like educational wise, but the traveling definitely influenced me a lot. They made my personality or they affected my value and my perspective. Because, born and raised in Japan, it's a clean country. Everything works, and then people are so nice. It's very different from the rest of the world, right? So when you go out, you meet people who are not that nice, who are trying to scam you, or like you go to a country which is not clean, and you don't even want to use bathroom, but people are using bathrooms. I'm like, how can they? Or like yeah, like everything. Because back then Japan was having bubble economy. Japan was like number one economic power in the world. So like everywhere I go, I felt like everything is so cheap, right? So yeah, those things you wouldn't know unless you actually go out and see yourself. And then also because I was doing backpacking and then staying at a youth hostel with total strangers, you get to talk to those people, right? And then people who are almost like same age as me went through a lot already. One guy was saying, yeah, my father was a judge at a Supreme Court, but he was assassinated. What? Like, and then girls were saying, yeah, my country is so poor, and then I'm the first one who went to college. And what? People don't go to college, you know, those type of stuff. And then on the other hand, you will have royal family who has maid, who has five cars, and then they have all different work, right? So it's like I'm like, wow, the world is so big. I know nothing about. I was humbled by those experiences, I guess.
Okay, so you've traveled the world, you've met all these different people, and you've seen different things. You return to Japan. Now you're looking at what you grew up with fresh eyes. How did that affect you when you were looking for a job? Because you had mentioned in the previous conversation that the culture was changing right around that time, especially where women were choosing not to start a family and not to be boxed in that role of being wife and mom. Did that
Mhm.
contribute to your viewpoint when you went back to Japan and you started working?
Yes. So yeah, I think women in late 20 or even 30s, they have, it's difficult, right? Because you have to decide if you want to get married, if you want to have kids, if you want to start family, where you want to live. Tough decisions you have to make. And then that decision will actually determine the rest of your life. So you'll be, of course, you'll be afraid of making big decisions, right? But now when I look back, you suffer because you actually have a lot of options. But as you get older, your options are, it's one by one, it disappears. At a certain age, you cannot have child. So like one less thing to worry about, right? So, but of course, when you are late 20s or 30, you don't know that. So I was going through tough time, especially around 30. That's when I graduated from business school too. The timing wise, I could have married and started family, but then my degree, MBA degree, would be just wasted. Because in Japan, it's either or. If you choose career, you pretty much have to give up on marriage and then having family. And then if you want to have family, then you have to sacrifice your career. And then I'm like, I just spent 2 years and there's so much money on my education. I can't just give up. I have to repay. Like I have a huge debt. I have to work. Yeah, and then also, yeah, because I grew up in the culture, I knew what would be like if I get married to typical Japanese man, which I wanted to avoid. So yeah, even my mom, who's been married, happily married for many years, and then my parents are really good, and then I grew up in a good family. But even she said, "Don't get married." To me, because she knew I could actually support myself financially, and then I'm strong enough to be live myself. Um, so she said, "You are not gonna be happy to have like normal, like typical Japanese wife life. So yeah, stay away."
I'm just so blown away by how supportive your parents are. That's amazing. To not have that burden, because if they had said, no, what's wrong with you? Why won't you do the typical thing? I think that would have been very difficult for you to kind of break out of the mold.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm just lucky, I guess, because I know a lot of my friends who went to, school with, yeah, they definitely have pressure from parents. And then also, peer pressure too. Everybody, my close friends were like married young and then starting to have kids. Am I really gonna be by myself? Am I gonna be okay? I questioned myself, but I just couldn't give up my freedom. Freedom is really important to me. But I
That's,
mean,
yeah, go ahead.
eventually to make someone else happy, then you have to be happy yourself too, right? You
Absolutely.
have, yeah, I realized I wouldn't be happy if I tied in, put into this box and then I can't even do anything. Then how can I make, my kids or my husband happy? Like, I don't think I can. So,
Okay, so we've established that you love freedom. I think that's a
mhm.
wonderful segue to get into Bitcoin. You've just quit Sony, and now walk us through how you came across Bitcoin.
So I mean, my Bitcoin story is actually really typical. You heard of the word Bitcoin so many years ago, but you didn't care less. You just dismissed it as, yeah, it's a scam, it's a speculation. So you didn't give any time to look into it. So I started hearing about Bitcoin back in 2013, 2014, because I've been investing in stocks and real estate from college, right? So I've been watching Bloomberg or like CNBC, and then sometimes when the Bitcoin price rate, they would report like, yeah, Bitcoin just broke $100, something like that. And then I vividly remember first time Bitcoin actually broke $100. Yeah, I think that was 2014. So yeah, but still, I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's tulip bubble. It will go down to zero. So I didn't even pay attention. But 2017 in bubble, I couldn't just watch the price going up and then making everybody so rich. So finally, I bought my first Bitcoin in December 2017 without doing research. So even though I bought Bitcoin, I didn't know what I just bought. But I was so happy. Finally, I'm gonna be rich. But 2 days later, the bubble bursted, and then the price crashed to the half. So I'm like, what? What just happened? I knew it. I knew it. It's a scam. I was, rankled, and I was so upset and then cursed myself for a few days. But then I thought, okay, I really have to figure this thing out. Otherwise, I'll be, scammed again in the same scheme. So that's when I finally took time to research about Bitcoin. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to read or who to listen to. So basically, I just Googled and then read all the article it came out. And then I was like, yeah, see, it's scam. You see, it's scam. But then I found this blog post, and then that made me wonder, oh, maybe it's not a scam. Maybe it might be. So the blog post was by Vijay Boyapati. It's famous, the bullish case for Bitcoin. I think many of Bitcoiners think it's a classic. It was written in 2018. It's made into book now. It's really good book. So he talked about Bitcoin and as a money, and he went back to the history of money and what makes good money. So yeah, to me, that was the first article which actually gave explanation in terms of like from their economics perspective. Even though I didn't study economics, I, okay, good. This seems really legit. So after that, I still continue on reading, and then a few months later, I discovered the Bible. It's called the Bitcoin Standard. which eventually I translated into Japanese. So yeah, that book was a slap in the face. Now this it's the world I've been living, the world I thought I knew, but it's totally different story. So I'm like, wow, a lot to think about. So that was when I started falling into the rabbit hole. Yeah, literally after that, or like during that time, like 2018, my personality. If I find something interesting, then I have to go all in. So that time, I would rather read than eat or sleep. So my mom is like, here we go again. Teruko's being Teruko. Like she wouldn't eat, she wouldn't sleep, she just read. Yeah, so I was doing it for about a year. I just couldn't stop. I wanted to know everything about Bitcoin. So that was extreme time. Yeah.
You know what I find fascinating is that when the price fell, instead of rushing to sell it, you decided to re up on it. Go through that period for me because that's so unusual. Most people will be like, oh my gosh, I made a horrible mistake. I better sell it before it goes to zero. But you didn't do that. You went and
Yeah,
studied
I mean,
it.
it was already, it was already in a half price. I'm like, at this point, it doesn't really matter, right? If I hold on to it, or if it goes there, I mean, I just made mistake. I just have to own the mistake. And a lot of people, I think they just don't want to even hear about Bitcoin after going through that experience, right? But I really wanted to make sure that I wouldn't trip on the same scam. I wouldn't allow myself if I fall into the same scam. So I really needed to know how this thing works.
That's interesting. Did you do that with other cryptocurrencies? Did you experiment with them and did you do the same studies into them that you did with Bitcoin?
So yeah, I mean, because 2 days after I bought Bitcoin, it crashed. So I didn't really have other cryptocurrency at that point. But when I was reading about Bitcoin, of course you come across other cryptocurrencies too, right? And then because I was back then looking cryptocurrency as almost like same as stocks. So I was trying to pick the right one which would outperform others, right? So yeah, I bought several or like tons of altcoins. But eventually I realized, okay, so Bitcoin is money. It's a good money. And then other cryptocurrency, it's just a startup stock like me. So I could differentiate and then I couldn't care less about those equities. I was more interested in good money and what the good money can do for the society and the whole world. So even though I came for the profit, I just wanted to make money. I stayed because I saw the possibility or the potential of Bitcoin, which can actually change the world for the better.
It's interesting that you say the other cryptocurrencies are like equity in a startup company. I haven't heard it described quite that way, so I'm really glad that you use that term because that's what it really is. It's centralized.
Yeah, because yeah, it's they have well, I mean they didn't call it the company, but they have what they call themselves like foundations. So it's same, right? It's that you have the organization which determines the fate of the blockchain or the cryptocurrency. So it's a company. And then those people who are working on are just members working for that company. And then people who hold the crypto is shareholders. They get to say what they think. But it's really up to the company or the management to decide, right? So it's a startup company.
Yeah, it sounds like it was actually really lucky that you bought Bitcoin and 2 days later it crashed. So that was actually a huge blessing for you. Okay, so
Yeah.
now you're way down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. Give us an idea of how you then transition into working in the Bitcoin space. And then I want to talk a little bit about the Nostr Asia that you just came from.
Yeah, so when I was reading about Bitcoin, I had so many questions, right? Because have math or technological background. So I started going to meetups to meet Bitcoiners who know about Bitcoin so I can ask questions. And then, of course, when I go to those Bitcoins, they are all men. And then when I enter the room, they are like, huh, are you lost? This is Bitcoin meetup. Like, are you lost? Like, are you someone plus one? Like, I'm like, no, I'm not plus one. I'm not lost. I'm here for Bitcoin meetup. And like, huh. Yeah, so I started going to this meetup, and then at one meetup, there were a group of people who are actually working to create hardware wallet made in Japan, like hardware wallet, and they had a prototype. So because my background is product planning and marketing in consumer market, right? So I'm like, you can't. This is make this like this or like not this color or this button. It's not like this. It has to be this way or something like. So I was giving irresponsible opinion about their product. And then they're like, yeah, they are a startup. And then basically turned out they were still working for university. They're professors, assistant professors. So they were like cryptographers who know nothing about business. I'm like, are you gonna be okay? Like you don't know anything about business. Like even though you come out with really good product, you have to deliver that product to the market. Otherwise, they would even know this exists. So you need marketing person, you need a communication channel, and then they have no clue. So yeah, I decided to join them. So that was my first Bitcoin job. And I was there for how many? 2, 3 years. Yeah. So that's how I got started in this industry.
That's fascinating. Isn't it so true that the inventor usually is not the best person to bring the product to the marketplace? So you worked for that company for 2 or 3 years. Did you transition from that point to where you are now, or was that there are other steps in
Yes.
between?
No, it was from their startup to the other side, the venture capital.
Hmm.
Because startup life is tough. Like yeah, like I really hate it when I had to talk to venture capital. Like I know them saying no, it's part of their job. It's nothing personal, but still, it's hard.
It hurts.
It hurts. And then also the market cycle too. Like Bitcoin has a 4 year cycle, right? And then when I joined them, it was 2018. So the bubble just bursted. So it wasn't a good time to raise money. I mean, it was a good time to build, but I was constantly worried about that, runway, like how many months do we spend? Like how many months we go like this? Yeah, it was so stressful. Yeah. So yeah, from there I joined PC.
So when you started traveling again, because I know that you're not in Japan right now, but when you started
Mhm.
traveling again, was that because of the venture capital work that you're doing, or is that just a personal interest, like I want to continue to see the world kind of thing?
So now mainly it's for conferences, so it's a part of the job. But even before, like when I was working for the startup, I was traveling mainly to see. I was really fascinated with the idea of Bitcoin circular economies. So I wanted to visit them and then see what they are doing. So I went to El Salvador and to Guatemala. Yeah, just out of curiosity, nothing to do with the job.
As we were talking before, there are circular economies popping up all over the place. I've personally talked to a bunch of women who are, with their own effort, with the local people, trying to start circular economies where they are. It's absolutely incredible the amount of work you have to put into convincing the
Yeah,
merchants to accept Bitcoin. What have you
yeah.
observed around the world in your work and also out of your personal interest that you can share with us? I mean, it could be just the type of people who are working on it or their differences.
You mean they're specifically about the circular economy or
Specifically about the
industrial
circular economy. Yeah.
circular economy? I think there are different ways, like the Bitcoin beach in El Salvador, it's bottom up, right? So, but it's a bottom up grassroots movement, but they had a funding. They had an anonymous donor who gave them a lot of Bitcoin. So they could start distributing Bitcoin to people living in the community. So I would say it's not a typical circular economy. Because nowadays, those other circular economy popping up around the world are started by Bitcoiners who are so into Bitcoin who want to change the world. So they're actually using their own money and their own time to convince, yeah, like you said, educate merchants and then building necessary tools. So those are the grassroots bottom-up approach. But on the other hand, like Lugano city of Switzerland, where you can actually pay, like you can shop more than 200 stores with Bitcoin, and then you can even pay tax or any city service in Bitcoin. And then, it's very different. It's a top-down approach. So they have budget, and then they can hire a company to make like posts to cater their needs. So basically, in Lugano, everybody accepts Bitcoin, but because of the way POS is configured, the merchant have a choice. But they can choose how much Bitcoin they want to keep once they get Bitcoin. So some might want to just keep 5%, some might want to keep half, some might want to keep all in Bitcoin. But in reality, everybody chose to convert back to Swiss franc as soon as they get Bitcoin. So no merchant wants to hold on to Bitcoin. Yeah, so that's the reality. So yeah, different types of circular economies. I don't know which one would be good. Top-down seems very efficient if you just want to count the stores which accept Bitcoin. But if you dig in, those people are not really holding on to Bitcoin. So I don't know. Like tax-wise, it's probably bottom-up will be eventually more effective. Yeah.
Wow, that's really helpful. I didn't know there were these different structures. Let's jump quickly to your recent experience, Nostr Asia, and it took place in Japan. So very exciting. Tell us a little
Mhm.
bit about what that was like.
So Nostr Asia is a conference about Nostr. Nostr is not part of Bitcoin, but Bitcoiners are very excited about because Bitcoin is a freedom money, but it's also freedom of speech. Like other social networks, service like Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, there are certain things you shouldn't say, otherwise your account will be frozen. But Nostr, it's not really decentralized. It's like you have many servers where you can store your data. So if this one server decided to ban you, there are so many others you can go to. So you would never lose your profile, right? So that kind of freedom of speech would appeal to Bitcoiners. So probably if you see overall, it's probably 90% people who are on Nostr are somewhat related to Bitcoin if they are Bitcoiners. But in Japan, it's different. Japanese Bitcoiners still hang out in Twitter or X, and not many people are on Nostr. So who's on Nostr? Those are the people who just like new stuff. So they found out, oh, there is this new SMS we have to be on. And then many of them are developers. And then they found out it's so easy to build an app on Nostr. It's so flexible. So they enjoy that experience, right? So Nostr Asia, even me, who actually spoke on the stage at Nostr Asia, didn't really use Nostr before Nostr Asia. Like I had an account for a year already. I'm not active. So I don't know much about Nostr, to be honest. So there are, I would say, we probably had close to like 700 people coming to conference over in total. And it was 4 days long. And then probably 60, 70% of people are visiting Bitcoiners. And then 3 to 40% are Japanese Nostr users, plus a bit of Bitcoiners. So the talks are very different from what you hear at Bitcoin conferences, even though people who are speaking are the same. So they are Bitcoiners, but they also are excited about Nostr. So on the stage, they try to focus on Nostr, so they didn't talk much about Bitcoin, which was, I think, which was good because those Japanese Bitcoiners, no, Nostr users, are not necessarily Bitcoin fans. Actually, some of them hate Bitcoin. When they found out that, which is like tipping service on Nostr, is using coin technology, they were so disappointed. And then they wanted to make alternative version of tipping function, not using Bitcoin. So they hate Bitcoin that much. So it was, for me, it was interesting. But I'm like, there are so many Bitcoiners, and then you can't avoid talking about Bitcoin. It's a freedom tech, same. And then those people who actually like Nostr because it's free, then they should be interested in Bitcoin if they know what coin is really about. So I try to orange pill Japanese Nostr users during Nostr Asia, but it didn't go well. That it didn't like I couldn't orange pill anyone.
Why do they hate Bitcoin so much?
Because so Japan used to be like Tokyo used to be the center of Bitcoin scene back in like until like 2017, 18. Mt. Gox was there. CJ, the founder of Binance, lived in Tokyo, and Roger Burwell also, in Tokyo. The world's first Bitcoin meetup was created in Tokyo. Everybody was in Tokyo. So it was big. And then a lot of people bought Bitcoin during like around the same time as me. So like 2017 bubble. And a lot of people lost money, after bubble busted. So they had some like, negative feeling about Bitcoin through that experience, or people who didn't even buy Bitcoin heard about so many bad things about Bitcoin. Like when Mt. Gox filed bankruptcy, I still remember seeing on national television network saying that the CEO of Bitcoin company was arrested. It was just one, huge, but one exchange. But people couldn't differentiate between Mt. Gox and then Bitcoin as an open source network. So yeah, I guess that image was embedded back then and it's still lingering around in their head. They couldn't shut off. So still, when I talk to Japanese friends or family members, I wouldn't say I work in Bitcoin, but then I have to start explaining. So I would just say, yeah, I'm in tech. I'm in fintech.
Even though we had that bubble burst, eventually the price came back up. But I guess by that time, they weren't really paying too much attention because they were
Yeah.
traumatized so much.
Yes. So the last one, was it 2021? Yeah, the price, they reached new all-time high, right? But not many people paid attention. I'm assuming because they already dismiss Bitcoin as scam, or some people who secretly wanted to have a Bitcoin so they could enjoy the price pump, but they didn't, so they were kind of bitter about it too. Yeah, I don't know which, but still, yeah. And then even like recently, oil price is going up, right? It's not making new all-time high, but it's close enough, especially when you look at the chart in Japanese yen, which has depreciated massively in the last few years. So it's so close, but still not many people are talking about it.
You also mentioned that at Nostr Asia, the developers really love the zapping capability of tipping each other. They didn't know what sats
Yeah.
were. And then they found out that it was operating on a Bitcoin base. Instead of looking to Bitcoin and why it's the base that's on Nostr, they created their own version.
They tried to, I don't know if they succeeded, but yeah, they talked about how we can go without using Bitcoin network. Hello. Yeah, and then even some of them I personally talked during Nostr Asia said, so now they are okay using Lightning Network. So they are like extensively like researching how Lightning networks work, and which is fine. But and then some of them are even running Lightning node. So when they say, yeah, I run Lightning node, I'm like, then you are also running Bitcoin node, but they don't want to do it. I mean, they don't want to say it. And then I wouldn't dare to say, yeah, I don't know why, but they said, yeah, Lightning Network is cool, but I just don't care about money. Like money is good or not. So I'm not interested in learning about Bitcoin.
So would you say that the Bitcoin movement in Japan is not very robust, or is it just isolated incidents with these developers?
No, that's the overall impression. I have a dedicated website, which is just a collection of Japanese Bitcoin educational materials. It's there, but I don't get a lot of traffic. People just don't care about Bitcoin because, I mean, you can probably relate. The US, it's probably the same.
Yeah.
Everything works. People have credit card, people have bank account, they have their own payment network, and then they get points or discount. I mean, they don't need Bitcoin, which is actually a blessing. So, I mean, if they don't need it, good for you. You are the lucky ones.
Yeah, I just had the same conversation with my son yesterday at the dinner table, and I could see as I was talking his eyes rolling because he's just not in that stage of life where it's important yet. He's relatively young. And so, yeah, all we can do is make the material available and hope that one day they will find their own way there.
That's also a good thing about Bitcoin, right? It's just there as an option. And then either opt in or opt out, it's entirely up to that person. That's freedom, that's flexibility. It's just an option.
Scott and I talk a lot about that. All we can do is share the knowledge we have so that people can make informed choices, because right now I feel like they're making choices, but they don't have the whole picture. Like what you were saying, when you started reading the Bitcoin Standard, you realized that everything you knew wasn't true. Everything that
Yeah.
you grew up believing wasn't true. So, yeah, that's my only goal, is just to give people the full picture.
Yeah, but I also have to warn people who are gonna be entering into Bitcoin that once you see the world through Bitcoin lens, you can't unseen your perspective has changed 180 degrees. And if you wish, you can't go back to the way you were before. So you might lose some friends. You'll be in different situations. So yeah, because sometimes I'm like, like, can I just go back to happy fiat life? It was so much easier. But you can't unsee. So yeah,
Well, that's
it's
exactly
just a warning.
why, yeah, that's exactly why I've created that retreat, because we do see things so differently. And it's frustrating that the rest of the world doesn't see what we see. And that can be really draining. That could be really
Mhm.
fatiguing. Okay, so to wrap up, what would you say to a woman who's still sitting on the fence about Bitcoin?
I actually don't have the advice because that's the question I've been always asking myself. How can I get more women to Bitcoin? How can I get more women to my Bitcoin meetup? And then I actually don't have an answer. So I don't know what's stopping them. I've been hosting Bitcoin meetup in Tokyo for 5 years, and then usually I'm the only woman there, and then people don't even realize I'm a woman because it's just all guys, and then you kind of have to blend in too, right? I mean, I'm not trying to be, but I guess by now I'm like one of them, like I'm like a dude. So I don't know what's blocking women's mind, and I don't know what's their role. One thing, yeah, like you said, women are busy, right? So much to do. They don't have enough time for themselves. So why they should spend that time on Bitcoin, like studying Bitcoin. And I I can't I can't shove orange pill into their mouths, right? They have to realize they have a problem. Once they know they have a problem, then they will start looking for solutions and they might stumble onto Bitcoin. But if they are living in a perfect world, I don't think those people will never discover Bitcoin. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't have the answer. I don't have a good advice.
It's so true that until they have a problem they need to solve, they're living their life and it's fine. One idea I have is like the home
Mm-mm.
parties for selling stuff. So they have it for jewelry, they have it for recipe books, they have it for Tupperware and Bible study and things. And I think there's something to the intimacy of somebody's home that is just
Mm,
different from a Bitcoin meetup per se. So that's sort of the way that I'm trying to figure out how to get more women to just invite two or three friends to their home and open it up. And then instead of saying, let me tell you about Bitcoin, because then the people won't show up,
mm,
maybe we
yeah.
say something like, come over and we'll play games. Because people still
Mm,
do that. They get together, they play games. That
mm.
hopefully then opens up the conversation. Because we kind of have to do it in a roundabout way. If we just go
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah,
guns blazing, like,
yeah,
do you know what is wrong with the fiat system? They're going to be like, oh, you're going to try to
yeah, yeah, yeah.
preach to me
Conspiracy
again.
theorist.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I've been thinking a lot about it because I do see in America too that most women are just going about their daily lives. Either they don't need it or they're so busy trying to survive, they don't have time to stop
Mm,
and think of other
mm.
alternatives.
Right, right. That's true too. Yeah, I think the people we want to reach who needs Bitcoin actually don't have time. It's just they're so busy. So I'm actually starting a podcast next month, and
Are
then
you? Good for you. Tell me
I
about
mean,
it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's gonna be in Japanese,
Yeah.
and then it's gonna be like hidden agenda is of course Bitcoin, but I'm not gonna talk about Bitcoin. The title
Very
doesn't
sneaky.
include Bitcoin. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's about money. Like people love money.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's about money.
Good for you. Yeah.
Yeah, so this podcast is actually based on like we use, do you know the My First Bitcoin, the El Salvador's
Yeah. Yeah.
concept? So yeah, we eventually gonna translate that textbook into Japanese, but it's such a big book. It's gonna take time. So in the meantime, we gonna start this podcast. It's gonna be just 15 minutes once a week. We're gonna update once a week. So it's not overwhelming at all.
Hmm.
And then we just go through the textbook bits by bits. It's basically me and then other guy. So the other guy is like a newbie. He just got a big one. So he asked me questions and then I answer kind of thing. And then we try not to use the word Bitcoin. Yeah.
Yeah, we got to
Because
do it all different ways. Yeah.
yeah, we just have to
Yeah.
hide our intention.
Yeah, actually, I was
People get
talking to,
alert.
I know, I was talking to Rachel Geyer in Germany, And she
Mhm.
was saying how if we were to have a wellness retreat, and we don't say
Mhm.
Bitcoin retreat, we just say wellness retreat, women would flock to it because everybody's about wellness. And then once they arrive, then you say, well, there's different kinds of wellness. You have your health wellness, you have your emotional wellness. And oh, by the way, you have your financial wellness. Let's talk about Bitcoin. But of course, we want to cover all the other areas. So in that way, you can attract newbies in and have a way to connect the ideas together. So I'm like, oh, that's very sneaky, but I think it might work, you know?
Yeah, but I think we have to be sneaky.
We have to be sneaky. I know. I just think that women have a lot of power to influence through the home, like through the living room. I always keep going back to the living room. So I just feel like we have a lot of power and we're just starting to collectively work together because the men have been working together for over a decade. And so I feel like their
Mm.
network is really strong, but the women are literally just starting to step forward. So as much as I can, I want to try to get us together face to face and not necessarily to talk about what's going on in technology or even politically, but just how do we communicate to other women in the way that only women can to spread the idea.
Mm.
And if you listen to some of the men talk, they would say, if things get bad, we're just going to leave. I'm going to pick up my family, we're going to leave. Well, that's great for you, but what about the rest of us who can't just pick up and leave? You know, my kids aren't going to come with us. I have to stay here. We got to fight the battle here. And the only way that I know how is to get women to work
Mm.
the women's network. Do you know? I don't know if you guys have this in Japan, but there's a organization called MAD, MADD, and it's Mothers Against Drunk Driving. It's a coordination started by a mom of somebody who was killed by a drunk
Mm.
driver, and it's a bottom-up grassroots kind of movement against drunk driving. MOPS is another one, Mothers of Preschoolers. That's a very, very strong network, and there are MOPS organizations everywhere. You can't go to a city in the US and not be able to find several MOPS groups. So kind of like that, if we can do
Mm.
something through the home like that
Mm.
for money education, maybe not even Bitcoin education, but just
Mm.
money education,
Yeah, money in general. Yeah.
yeah, then we have a chance to spread the wildfire, you know? That's my thought.
Yeah, but yeah, I think in general, especially in the last few years, or like last year, this year, people are suffering from inflation, and then many people are wondering why we have to suffer, right? We are working at the same time, and we are getting, even we are getting rates, but somehow your life is much more difficult that you can't even keep up with bills. So people are like starting to question why. People just haven't found what's causing. But yeah, so I guess now it's the timing wise, it's good.
Thanks for joining us today. If the discussion with our guests resonated with you and you would like to dive deeper into the world of Bitcoin, don't miss out on joining the Orange Hatter Women's Reading Club. The meetup link is in the show notes. Also, if there are women in your life whom you think would both enjoy and benefit from learning more about Bitcoin, please share Orange Hatter with them. Until next time, bye!
This episode is sponsored by Free Market Kids.